Our Master of Ceremonies is no other than that distinguished professor from Turkey Hollow, Professor Schnitzel.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, ladies and people. It's good to see you here, and I know by golly you come to learn a little bit about the Pennsylvania Dutch. As you noticed everything today here, we are all dressed up in our best, because we knew you'd be coming from different foreign countries. Some are here from New Jersey. Some are here from New York State. I know we got a gentleman here from Connecticut. That's one of the New English states up there. They got a state up there called Maine, but we don't have anybody here from Maine today. They're mostly maniacs from up there. But I come here all dressed up, special for this occasion. They told me they're having all these strangers here, I wasn't to come looking so sloppy. I was to dress up, so I did. I bought myself a brand new seersucker suit. And they told me this thing's gonna wear like iron, and I believe them. It's getting all rusty already. And then I got a new hat from my wife for a present. Well, I guess it was a present. I came home unexpected the other night, and this was on the table. It must have been a present, because when I come in the front door, I heard the delivery man go out the back. I walked down the street the other night in Turkey Hollow, where I live, and a big fat lady comes down the street. She looks me over, she says, "How would you like to take a chance with me?" I says, "Well, a fat chance I got." But I took her out. Then the next night she called me up. She says, "Professor, what are you going to do tonight?" I says, "Nothing." And she says, "In that case, you better stay home. That's all you done last night." Now, before I go any further, I might as well explain that I am Pennsylvania Dutch. Because if you hear me talk English, you might not think that I'm Dutch. See, what we say sometimes, we mean it to come out right, but it comes out in a fiddle. You know, the front end comes last or something like that. Because when we translate the Dutch into English, it don't make, you know. I take, for instance, we say, throw the horse over the fence some hay. Well, now that sounds funny, eh? But that's the way we talk. But the English, the Dutch would be, schmeißt der Kerl, wenn ich heu über der Fence will. And that's what makes, when you translate it into English, it comes out backwards. Now, like, for instance, we say, make the light out. But that ain't right. You should say, out in the light. See, it's using the right kind of English. That's very important. Take one of our friends here in the group. He has a daughter, just came home from college. And she was explaining to Pop, she says, "Pop, the yard looks so wonderful nice this year. The flowers are so nice, the grass is so nice. How in the world did you do it?" Well, he says it wasn't easy. It took a lot of hard work and 24 loads of manure. Well, she didn't like this very much. So she waited until Pop went out in the barnyard. Then she says to Mom, she says, "Mom, why don't you teach Pop to talk a little different?" She says, "Why, what's wrong? He talks all right." "Yeah, but," she says, "I asked him how he got the yard so nice and the grass so green. And he says, lots of hard work and 24 loads of manure. Why can't you get him to say fertilizer?" Mom says, "Just shut up. It took me 25 years to get him to say manure." So you see, we mean right, only sometimes it comes out for hoodoo. You know, it's amazing the different people you see when you walk through a crowd like this. I seen a fellow over here not so long ago from Massachusetts, and they're all over. They're all over. And I travel around quite a bit. I'll get as far as Allentown. Yeah, and well, Lancaster. The other day I was up to York, Pennsylvania. And it just so happened that my neighbor lady found out I was going up to York, Mrs. Griesemer. She's one of them old Wunderfitzes, you know. She says, I understand you're going up to York. I says, yeah, that's right. Well, she says, do me a favor, will you? I says, I will if I can. What is it? Well, she says, I have a boy that lives up in York, and he hasn't written me a letter for 20 years. I wish you'd look him up and tell him to write to me once. Well, I says, I'll be glad to do it. I says, where does he live? She says, I don't know exactly. All I know is he lives up there somewhere in a little white house. That's all I know. Well, I says, that ain't much to go on. Well, I says, what's his name? She says, Donald. Donald Griesemer, but we only call him Don for short. Well, I says, I'll try it. So when I got up to York, I stopped outside the town there at one of them gas stations, and I asked the man there, I says, do you know where is a little white house? He says, yes, there's one around in the back. And I went back, and by golly, there it was. And I seen a fella coming out, putting on his coat. I says, are you done? He says, yes. Well, I says, why don't you write your mom a letter? Of course, maybe he had no paper. But I guess everything come out all right anyhow. Now we're going to do something here a little different. We're going to show you the form of entertainment that we used to have many years ago, before the radio and before television and before movies and before automobiles. We used to dance. What they called barn dancing in those days, we call it hoedowning today. And this all came about for a reason. You know, Pop had a lot of time on his hands in the evening. And he used to be quite a lot of bother to Mom. He always had ideas. And Mom was getting sick and tired of this. So she says to him one night, she says, Pop, let's go down to the village hotel and let's have some fun down there. So when they were down, they drank a couple, you know, juices, you know. And then they says, let's have a dance. So that's where they started this barn dancing. And you could see after you watch them dance, by the time Pop got home at night, he was glad to go to sleep. Now we got an orchestra over here. Now not everybody can play this kind of music. This is special kind of music. I used to have a band like that myself at one time, but I gave them up. Half of them were playing fast and half were playing slow. It was one of those half-fast bands.
Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Professor Schnitzel and the Schnitzel Bunkers.
1, 2, 3. Wait till the sun shines, Nellie, and the gray skies turn to blue. You know I love you, Nellie. Indeed I do. Yes, we'll face the years together. Sweethearts, you and I. So won't you wait till the sun shines, Nellie. By and by. Okay, boys, let's throw the horse over the fence some hay. I'm the guy that put the warts on the pickles. Get off of the stove, Grandma. You're too old to be riding the range. You're too slow to catch your breath. You tell him, operator, you got his number. Don't buy any wood today, Mom. Pop's coming home with a load. Everybody now. Wait till the sun shines, Nellie, and the gray skies turn to blue. You know I love you, Nellie. Indeed I do. Yes. We'll face the years together. Sweethearts, you and I. So won't you wait till the sun shines, Nellie. Bye and bye. Oh, that's better. Well, that's quite a dancer there, I would say. That is Tiny, the fellow you seen there, Tiny. And he won't quit. He just keeps going. He likes it, though. He likes it. Has a lot of fun. His mother-in-law is one of them sickly women, you know. She's got diabetics, you know. And they got to be very careful what they eat. And the doctor told Tiny, he says, now you keep an eye on Grandma. If you catch her cheating on her diet any time, let me know, it could be bad. So everything was going along all right for a long time. And one day he passed the parlor and Grandma was in there eating ice cream and candy and cake and all that stuff, cheating on her diet. And he right away called the doctor. He says, Doc, you better come over here right away. I caught Grandma cheating on the diet. He says, I'll be right over. Until he got over, Grandma was already in a coma. She was underconscious, you know. And he says, there ain't much you can do, but take her to the hospital right away. So they slapped her in the old flu and went to the hospital. And when they got there to the hospital, there was no room. They told him the only room they had was in the maternity ward. So he says, well, we have to slap Grandma in there. So they put Grandma in the maternity ward, and, well, she was getting along pretty good under care, you know. And then they used to go in every night to visit him and his wife and little Johnny and Mary. So one night Johnny was coming out of the room as Mrs. Fenstermacher, the village gossip, was coming up the hallway. And she saw Johnny come out of the maternity ward. She says, Johnny, what in the world are you doing in there? He says, we went in to see Grandma. Grandma in there? What's she doing in there? Johnny says, I don't know. Pop says she cheated and she got caught. So girls, watch out for your sugar.
And now, here he is, the last of the Red Hot Papas, Professor Schnitzel.
1, 2, 3, spiel. Hold it. Jammer, je noch einmal, that sounds so sour. Don, you play so nice, you play. When I was just a boy of 12, not dry behind my ears yet, I met a girl named Katey Klutz, as shy as any violet. Then one day I stole a kiss. She didn't know what she was missing. Now you know what schmutzing is. Well, schmutzing's only kissing. Ay, how she could schmutz. Ay, that Katey Klutz. Ay, how she could schmutz. There never was a schmutzing girl like that there Katey Klutz. She was my hon, my sugar bun. She was my one desire. I schmutzed her and she schmutzed me till we set our hearts on fire. Hey, ay, how she could schmutz. Ay, that Katey Klutz. Ay, how she could schmutz. There never was a schmutzing girl like that there Katey Klutz. Viva Katey. Her hair was gold, her lips were red, she had a winning way. The way she schmutzed me, I'll remember till my dying day. Oh, aye, 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 how she could schmutz. Aye, 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 that Katey Klutz. Aye, 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 how she could schmutz. You never saw a schmutzing girl like that, Katey Klutz. There never was a schmutzing girl like Katey Klutz. Well, imagine something like that. Well, as you notice, that one gentleman, Hornsinger, just show your face here, will you? I just want him to see you. That's the man there. He does a lot of traveling. He and his wife and the youngster, and they take trips, you know. And all last summer, I believe, they went on a train ride, and he has a little boy that is kind of small for his age. He's 13 years old, but he's still in short pants. So when he got on the train, he says, "What is the fare here?" to the conductor. And he told the conductor, he says, "This boy is 13. Well, the conductor says, "We have a ruling on the train. For long pants you pay full fare, and for short pants only half fare." He says, "All right, Mom," he says, "this time you can ride for nothing." But you know, I had a lot of girls in my times. I remember once I used to go as a school teacher. She was a nice girl. She had a lot of class, but no principal. One day I went to visit her at school, and she didn't know I was snuffling around in the back of the room there. And I heard her say to the one little boy, she says, "Johnny, you go up to the blackboard and do number 1. And she says, "Susie, you go up and do number 2. And she says, "Freddie, you pass the paper and let the rest do it in their seats." So it was quite a problem. You have seen all kinds of Dutch craftsmen here on the grounds. You've seen wheelwrights, you have seen basket makers, you have seen blacksmiths, everything like that. But now one thing you haven't seen yet, and that is the Pennsylvania Dutch soldier. Now I was one of those. I guess you'd look at me now, you wouldn't think that I was 4 years in the war, but I was. I had 1 year in France, 2 years in the Full of Bruins Islands. Oh, that's only 3. Oh yes, I was married a year. That was a war too. And you know, I'll never forget when I got my letter from Uncle Samuel. It was written to me special. It said, "Your presence is requested. Will you come, or must we fetch you?" Well, they come to fetch me. I says, "You can't do this to me, I got connections." So they got me by the connections and took me. They took me down to the dock center where they take all the men, And as soon as I walk in, some fella hollers, he says, "Aye, jammer nog eenmaal. Look what the wind blew in." I says, "The wind nix, it was the draft." Then they took me in the room there, and a fella asked me whole lots of dumb questions. He says, "What's your name?" I says, "Professor Schnitzel." "No," he says, "What's your full name?" Well, I says, "It's the same as when I'm sober." "No," he says, "What's the front, the middle, and the behind name?" I says, "Professor Herman F. Schnitzel." He says, "What's the F for?" He was a glutskopf. I says, "F is for Philip." And then he says, "Born?" Well, I said, "Sure, I was born. Do you think I was hatched?" He says, "Where was you born?" I says, "U.S." He says, "You mean United States?" I says, "No, upstairs." Then he says, "What are your parents' names?" Well, that was easy. I knew them all my life. I says, "Mama and Papa." But I says, they were always fighting. From morning to night, this was nothing but fight, fight. He says, "I don't want to hear that." He says, "What I want to know is, who was your father?" Well, do not matter. I says, that's what they were always fighting about. Well, he says, "What do your parents do for a living?" Well, I says, "They're in the iron and steel business. Mom does the ironing and Pop does the stealing." He says, "What's your occupation?" I says, "I'm a joiner." He says, "What in the world is a joiner?" Well, I says, "I go in a hotel, and when a fella comes in and buys a drink, I join him. It's cheaper." Well, he says, "I want to ask you one more question, then you go in the next room." And he says, "This time I want the right answer." He says, "Were your parents Russian?" I says, "No, they took their time." And it paid him too. So I went into the next room, and as soon as I walk in the door, some big fat sergeant hollers at me. He says, "Take off your clothing." Now imagine something like that. I never even saw that fella before. I was never introduced to him. He says, "Take 'em off." I says, "No, I won't." He says, "Take 'em off." I says, "No, I won't." And the funniest thing happened, I took 'em off. There we stood, 75 men with nothing on but our shoes. Imagine that, no clothing, no place to put our hands. "75 men all in a straight line." And I looked down the line. Right there I made up my mind Abraham Lincoln is crazy, all men are not created equal. Why, some had feet that big. And then two doctors get a hold of you, one on each side. One looks in one ear and one looks in the other. And if they can see each other, you ain't in the army. And then one sneaky doctor, with cold hands, he grabs a hold of you and tells you to cough. And where he grabs you, you gotta cough. And then one doctor, he made a mistake. He put his hand on my shoulder and I was warm yet. He says, you're in Class A. He says, I don't want it. I says, I want Class B. He says, what do you mean Class B? I says, that means I want to be here when they go and I want to be here when they come back. Well, he says, you don't know it, but you're on your way to France right now. And on the way down to the dock where we got on the boat, we had a sergeant who stuttered. And before that son of a gun could holler halt, 12 of us was overboard. And I was the last one to crawl out. Just then the major came along. He says, fall in. Why, I says, do not bother, I just crawled out. But you know, I'll never forget that day if I get to be 196. There's a lot of men here, and I know they got mother-in-laws. And sometimes what these men say about their mother-in-laws, you can't even put in a book. But I can only talk good about my mother-in-law. Because when I left for France, she was one of the last ones to see me off. And I can see her there yet, standing on the dock, looking up at me on the ship. And she held something in her delicate little claws. She says, look, Herman. She always called me Herman. That was my name. She says, look, Herman, I bought a gold star. Don't disappoint me. And then they told me I was going to go by boat all the way to France. That was a lie right there. I went by rail all the way. I was hanging on it. Some smart aleck says, what's the matter, buddy, if you got a weak stomach? I says, a weak stomach? Well, I'm throwing it as far as the rest of them. One night I was on top ship. I didn't see him, but I heard the captain say, I believe the moon's coming up. Oi, 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 I says, must that come up yet? But one thing I must say, they fed us good on the boat, that they did. 6 meals a day, every day. 3 down, 3 up. And then they told me when I'd get on the other side, I'd see a whole lot of nice French mademoiselles. Ay, 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 ay. All I saw was a couple of jackasses and I got them. 2 jackasses and an ammunition wagon, that was my job. Mule train Schnitzel, they called me. One day I was driving around out there on nobody's land. Well, I guess it was nobody. Nobody's was there anyhow. And an airplane was flying around and he seen me down below. And he lets go a shooting cracker. And that comes down. Boom! There go the jackasses. He flew around some more and lets go another shooting cracker. Boom! There goes the ammunition wagon. I got off then. Getting too hot for me. But while I was standing there, he lets go another shooting cracker, and that comes down and explodes right alongside of me. And right then and there, I done one of the most childish things. I started to run. And the fella in back of me started to slip. I was running and he was slipping. He thought I was using fluid drive. Pretty soon I came up to a fella and says, "Hey buddy, have you got a cigarette?" He says, "Yes, I got a cigarette, but I'm no buddy." He says, "I'm the captain." Oh, I says, "Pardon me, I didn't know I was that far behind the lines." Well, he says, "Young fella, anybody that's this far back must be a coward. And just for that, I'm going to give you your last chance. I'm going to put you in the aviation. If you don't make good there, I'm going to send you home. We can win this war without you." And they did, too. So they put me in an airplane, and I was supposed to work the machine gun. And they took me up in the up in the air. 10,647 feet and 19 inches. And when he got up there, he took a big loop, and I couldn't find the snapper. And then he took another big loop. Still I couldn't find the snapper. And then the right wing fell off. And then the left one fell off. And then we came tumbling down through the air. Then he hollers at me. He said, "Schnitzel, for goodness sakes, do something." Oh. I says, "You're too late. I did on the first loop."
Professor Herman Schnitzel, the mayor of Turkey Hollow.
You know, there's always a lot of gossip in the hometown, like Turkey Hollow, for instance. There's an awful lot of gossip. I seen two ladies the other day, met in Eve Warner's grocery store. Mrs. Kiefer, she seen this other lady, she says, "Hello, Mary, I haven't seen you for I don't know how long. How have you been?" "Well," she says, "not so good. And my daughter Ethel, she ain't so good either." My daughter Ethel has been laid up in bed with arthritis for 3 weeks. Arthritis? She says, "Yeah. 3 weeks she's been laid up with arthritis. And that could be bad." She says, "You know it could be bad." She says, "I know them riders, boys, and that Arthur is the worst one of the whole bunch." You think them riders boys are bad. You should know that Cherry Himmelreich. Now there's a fella, he never goes on unless he comes home with a good load. Yes, that's right. And my Uncle Louis was over at their house, quite some time ago, painting on the inside. My Uncle Louis was a painter by trade, and by accident. And he was over painting up on the second floor, and he just had the hallway finished that night, and he was going to come back the next day and paint the kitchen. So he went home, and that night Cherry Himmelreich come home all loaded up again as usual. And when he got up to the top of the steps, he stumbled and fell, and his hand went right against this wall, with the new paint. And he was trying to straighten it out in the dark, And his wife come out of the room, she says, "Get into bed, you drunken pig, get away here. I'll have Louis fix it the first thing in the morning." So when Uncle Louis come over the next morning, she says, "Louis, where are you going to work today?" He says, "I'm going to work in the kitchen." Well, she says, before you go in the kitchen, I want you to come along upstairs with me. I want to show you where my husband put his hand last night. Well, Uncle Louis says, Mrs. Himmelreich, I'm an old man, and if you don't mind, I'd just as soon have a cold bottle of beer. But Uncle Louis was a good family man. Well, so am I. I'm a good family man, too. Whenever I go away, and I travel a lot, whenever I go away, I always take my wife along. But it don't do me any good. She finds her way home anyhow. The other week, we was out in San Francisco, California, you know. Well, we was. And when we was out there, old Dan Hummel, that's our village undertaker, he called me up. He says, Schnitzel, your mother-in-law just passed away. He says, shall I order burial, embalming, or cremation? I says, order all three and right away, don't take no chances. You know, I'm not always out traveling around. When I'm not, I'm at home visiting some of my friends. Just the other night I went over to see an old friend of mine, old Cherry Hans Frost. That's his name, you know. And he's about 93. And he was telling me he went to see the doctor that day. And when he went down to the doctor, says, what can I do for you, Cherry? Well, he says, doctor, I got trouble. He says, what's your trouble? Well, all the time I want to chase girls. Doctor says, that's no trouble. Yes, he says, it is. He says, when I catch him, I don't know what I chased him for. I got a friend down there, it's a tooth puller, too. They really call him a dentist, a sawroper. That's what they call him in Dutch, sawman. Anyhow, he told me he had a lady come in the other day, she had an awful toothache. Oh, this was killing or something wonderful. And she got in, doc says, what's wrong? Well, she says, I want a tooth pulled, but she says, I'm so nervous and I'm so excited, I'm scared. She says, I'm awful scared. You know, she says, I believe I'll just as soon have a baby. Well, Harry says, make up your mind so I can adjust the chair. One of our other neighbors down there, Mrs. Martin, she has a young daughter that's just starting to go out with the fellas now. And Mom Martin was giving her some information. She says, now you're going to watch yourself when you go out with these fellas. They take you out to the carnival or the picnic, and then they buy you some popcorn and ice cream and soda pop, and then they want to go for a ride. And then they want to park somewhere, and then when they park, they want to put their head on your shoulder, and that's when I start to worry. So the next morning when she come home, she says, Mom, you were right. You were right, exactly. He took me to the carnival, and then he got me some popcorn and some soda and some ice cream, and then he says, let's go for a ride. And then we took a ride, and then he started to park, and he was just about ready to put his head on my shoulder. I says, hey, nix come raus. Let me put my head on your shoulder. Let your mom worry.